Hey there. Welcome back to the Going Scared podcast. I'm Jessica Honegger, founder of the world-changing brand Noonday Collection, and we gather here for direct and honest conversations that help you live a life of courage by leaving comfort and going scared. We have launched our celebration of 2 million downloads. Wow, wow, wow. Never thought I'd say those words. Thank you so much for being a listener and coming along on this journey with us. So we're celebrating by honoring you, our listeners, and we are airing our top 10 listener favorite episodes from the vaults with some updates about what's going on now with those guests. This conversation, I can see why it's one of your favorites, Nicole Walters. She is so engaging. She's a successful entrepreneur, business coach, and self-proclaimed functional hot mess mom who has made it her mission to prioritize wellness in her busy life. This was part of our Habit series. Our Habit series was the most widely listened to series, and this was our habit of wellness. And Nicole just makes health so approachable. She went through a huge transformational journey in her own body, in her exercise, and how she eats. And I caught up with her. She was co-hosting an event here in Austin, and I got to see her at that event, and she is maintaining her health and wellness. So it was not just a passing phase. In this conversation, she shares her personal journey, and funny thing, this is interesting. So since this episode aired, she went on to be a judge with Mark Randolph, who we just aired last week on the Entrepreneur Elevator Pitch, which is the show where entrepreneurs go on, get in an elevator with investors, and give them a 1-minute pitch. She's also launching her first book in the next couple of months, and you can go ahead and pre-order it now. It's called Nothing is Missing. It is a profound and gripping memoir, one of those unput-downable stories of what it takes to show up for yourself and the joy that can come once you do. Raised in a home where food was unstable and anger was the norm, Nicole learned early that she needed to take charge of her own safety and security. So she did. She got into an elite private school by talking to a stranger in her dad's cab. She strategized her way onto Wheel of Fortune to pay for college. She adopted 3 girls after meeting their mother panhandling, and she quit her job to launch her own business. And she struggled, hustling endlessly to try to achieve society's definition of success left her exhausted, compromising her own sense of worth in order to accommodate others. So Nicole worked herself straight into a health crisis that threatened her life and the family she had worked so hard to build. It was not until she was forced into a major reckoning in both her business and her marriage that Nicole realized she was already enough. She had and was everything that she needed, and nothing is missing. Nicole contemplates how she was able to create the life she wanted using the strength that she had within herself all along. Nicole is a great person to learn from. And it's just some behind the scenes. I was, certain guests, when you're excited about getting on with them and you're wondering, okay, are we going to chit chat before the show? Are we going to chit chat after the show? And Nicole was one of those that just said, here's my phone number. Call me anytime. If you need me, whatever you want, I'm here. I'm here for you. And her spirit of generosity is apparent even in this episode and how she shows up in the world. So I'm excited for you to give this episode a listen with Nicole Walters. We're in the middle of a series on, it's called Habits for Highly Hesitant Habit Keepers.
What about habits for hot messes?
Well, basically that's what it is. That's what it is. And so we're covering going to doctor's appointments. I'm going to the OB-GYN for the first time in 5 years. We're going to the dentist first time since COVID.
I love this. So you're gonna be a whole new person when you come out. It's like getting like a spit shine detail at the car shop.
We're doing it. We're going for it. And so really the part of your story I wanted to hone in on is your health story, which I know is just a part of it because you work with entrepreneurs. I mean, I could dive in and talk about how you went from corporate America to now training entrepreneurs, monetizing people. I mean, that's like one of my favorite topics. I mean, that's the number one. I was on the phone with an entrepreneur earlier and I'm like, what are your revenue goals? Like you keep telling me what your follower goals are. I'm like, no, please tell me your revenue goals.
Tell me the real numbers. Yeah. Well, it's interesting because I hardly talk about my health anywhere. And actually my podcast, like with the relaunch, my first episode is actually gonna be all about it. So, so you're getting like literally, I almost
this is
never
your practice
talk about
run.
It. Not even practice run. Like I literally like because you know that most of the New York Times bestselling books and all the books that do really well, they're all health books. You know, they're all about like South Beach Diet or Atkins. Like people are just absolutely obsessed with like their bodies and not in like a healthy fine tuning way, but in an obsessive, like narcissistic, not, you know, a society putting it on pressure on you way. So I actually just have like kind of stayed away from it. I mean, I talk about it, but I talk about it in a like, let's not ignore the obvious. I look different, you know, but I don't talk about it in a like, you know, heavy detail way. So, I mean, I will absolutely go in a little bit, but it's just not going to be as sassy as I think some people may expect. It's going to be delightfully boring.
I know, but see, I really like how you talk about it because we are in this weird time right now where I feel like it's either you're obsessed and everything you talk about is like your before and after journey. And it's like, and here's how I did it and sign up for the program that I'm selling so you can do this too. Or I feel like there's the super body positive movement that's like, don't even talk about this because you're fine just the way you are. And
which
like,
is also another side of it too, because like, I know that for me, personal development is personal development. And so, yes, I absolutely 100% believe you shouldn't hate the body you're in while you're on your path towards being your best version of yourself. And I don't think the best version of yourself should be defined by society. But let's not ignore the fact that being excessively overweight is bad for your heart, you know? And so as long as your numbers and things are also in alignment of that, you know what I mean? Like, so it's one of those things where I think there's a big difference between being body positive and being body like ignorant, like not paying attention to it at all, you know, and it's that sort of fine line that I always think it's important. Body positive movement, I think, is trying to focus primarily on just loving yourself along the way, which is critically important. Critically. So
I want to hear about, and really it's your health transformation. I don't even want to focus on I don't see it as a body transformation, but it's a health transformation. So spill the beans.
Yeah. So, I mean, I will spill as much beans as possible. So I'm always really cognizant and self-aware about how much I talk about my body on the internet because people obsess. They absolutely obsess in the most unhealthy way. And the number one question I always get is, what is your secret? So I'm going to drop it here. You know, the secret is that when you want to do a transformation, when you feel like you need to improve, you go to an expert. And that's the first thing that I did. So a lot of people are like, well, I want to know, do you count your macros? Are you doing keto? How often do you work? What is your regimen? And I think that's where a lot of us cross the line in this sort of internet influencer, you know, space. We want to coach everyone, you know, and genuinely sharing out of enthusiasm. I think the intentions are the best, you know, on what we've done and how we think it'll help them. But the truth is, I feel like that's dangerous. You know, and it's the reason why I've kind of shied away from it. What I always tell people to do is start off with going to get an expert to go along with you on your journey. And I'm really, really candid about the fact that if there's anything you want to improve and it's something you've been struggling with, what makes you think that you're the best person to guide your process when you're the you're the person who got you where you are? So it's like,
that's good.
Years, it's just for years and years and years, right? Like I'm sitting here like, oh, I'll do this next thing, or oh, I'll try this fat, or I'll try these vitamins, or I'll try this workout thing. And I kept on not failing, but finding one more way that it wasn't working for me in a long-term way. And finally I said, if I want to learn how to do jujitsu, I go to an expert. I don't just say, okay, well, let me buy a jujitsu book and then do that for 3 weeks and hope it works. You know, like
so is there sort of a, like, I want to call it, what was your moment? Like, was it one moment?
Yeah, I do have a moment. So I will never forget, I was at a conference and I was a keynote speaker in Boise, Idaho. And at this point, I was the heaviest I'd ever been. I think I was like a size 22. I was coming up with 300 pounds. Like it was just, I was wildly unhealthy. Like now it's worth saying that wildly unhealthy strictly means my numbers. It was not about how I felt about the way I looked. If anything, that was probably the biggest issue, I think, with my incentivization to lose weight. I like the way I look. So, like, I made my first million, at my largest size ever. I was on, getting TV deals, and, my brand was growing bigger than ever. Like, my weight was never something that kept me from accomplishing the things that I wanted to do in terms of ticking off that list. And I also thought I looked good. So, like, I felt like, at least for me, I wore my weight very well, So, like, I
Mm.
just, and I liked the way I dressed and I liked my body. Like, I just really didn't have any issues with my appearance. But what happened in Boise was my keynote speech is very, very high energy. Like, I run up on stage and, like, I'm dancing, I'm jumping around. Like, it's just a lot of high energy. And for the first time, I went to go do my keynote, and I'm in front of this great crowd. I'm pumped. I'm ready to do it. My really good friend Seth Godin is in the audience, and he's watching and, like, cheering me on. I really wanted to kill it. And I get on stage, and for the first maybe like 3 minutes of my keynote, I couldn't catch my breath.
Mm.
And I love it because if you look on YouTube, this keynote is actually out there. It's like you can see it, you can watch it, and everyone says you can't quite tell too much, but you can see I'm a little out of breath. And I remember in my head, in that moment, the first thing that occurred to me was, oh my gosh, what if I can't catch my breath? Like, when is this feeling going to stop? Because I need to get into my keynote. Everyone's staring at me, and I'm beyond winded, And I realized then and there, God had called me to do some really amazing things, and I had to create, build, and nurture the vessel that was going to arrive to each of those
Mm.
moments.
Mm.
And in terms of being on stage, people pay the same price for chunky Nicole as they pay for tiny Nicole, So either way, the question becomes, what is it that I want to give them that's going to be the best show? I mean, I'm holding them captive for 45 minutes. Don't they deserve to receive my peak top value? And so, as somebody who takes their craft very seriously, I practice, I get coaches, I get a stylist, I get a makeup artist. Why wouldn't I also get a trainer to make sure that I'm able to deliver the best performance I can ever give? So between running through airports, getting on stage, keeping up with the life that I have here, being physically fit for that life is a huge part of it. So, I mean, does it mean that I'm, always peak training? No, like, Michael Phelps eats 10 pizzas during off season. You know what I mean? But when it comes up
Right.
to Olympic season, you better believe I'm getting in fighting form because I care, and not just about myself, but about the people that I'm serving.
So you go to a doctor then at this point, or some
Yep.
sort of expert,
First step.
and
Yep, first step, doctor. Actually, a doctor was my first step.
your
Like,
doctor
I
was
went
your
in.
first step.
Yep,
Okay.
because the numbers I was looking at were the wrong numbers. Like, everyone gets so fixated on their scale or on their measurements, and, like, you hear that all the time. Don't worry about the scale, worry about your measurements and how your pants fit. Like, I appreciate all of that, and yes, those are some numbers you can pay attention to. The numbers that really matter are like your triglycerides, your cholesterol, your blood pressure, these are the numbers that matter. Are you pre-diabetic? And you better believe I was ticking off every single mark in the wrong direction. And so that was
Okay.
what got me shaken and said, I don't really care what any of these other things do. Like, losing weight and losing inches is going to be a byproduct of me making sure that I'm not pre-diabetic and that I'm not dealing with high blood pressure. So that's going to be the bonus to actually making sure my insides are in good shape.
And how old were you at the time?
That's the best part. So I want to say I was 30. Nope, not even. I had to be like 28 maybe. And so there was nothing scarier than going into the doctor and sitting down and having them tell you, like, you're pre-diabetic and you will be diabetic if you keep on this path. And at the rate that you're going, you are literally shaving years off your life. Like, you making it into 80 is highly unlikely at the path that you're going.
Wow.
And,
Okay.
like, I mean, I being told to your face while you're living your dream. Mind you, like, I'm not sitting in a cube all day, not using my gifts the way that I should be. I am living my dream and seeing it in front of me. And I'm also being told that my dream will be cut short because I wasn't taking myself seriously. Like, it's just without question. I couldn't argue with it. I had to make a change.
Okay. So were you happy with how you were eating and drinking at the time? Like, was that, yeah, what was your relationship with food? Yeah.
So my relationship with food was one where I grew up in a household where food was not discussed in a scientific way. So I just didn't understand how food impacted my body. And a lot of that had to do with, cultural things. My parents are from Ghana, West Africa. So a lot of the foods that we ate were authentic to our culture. So we ate a lot of stews and a lot of starches and a lot of vegetables that were pureed into soups and things like that. And all of that's good and great when your parents are controlling your diet, because I was eating what I should be eating, in terms of health and balance and all that. But when I got out into the American real world, I didn't know the difference between a burger and some nuggets and fries. And I mean, because I didn't even grow up with that. So, I started consuming things without knowing anything about, calories or portions. I mean, the minute I found out that a portion of rice was like a half a cup, I was like, more like a half a plate. You know what I mean? Like I
Right.
didn't even,
Totally.
like I didn't even understand. Or when my nutritionist told me that you do recognize that a piece of chicken is a serving of chicken, not a three piece. A three-piece of chicken is a half a chicken. So you eat three pieces of chicken, you've eaten a half a chicken. Like these sorts of things they didn't occur to me. I was just eating to eat because this is what I was being given. And so once I really learned about food, and not in a way that was disordered, it wasn't this food is bad for you, this food is bad for you, but it was an empowered perspective around what food does, and thus make choices that are aligned with where you want to go. If you want to gain weight, you eat a certain way. If you want to lose weight, you eat a certain way. So, once I was empowered with that knowledge, it became a lot easier for me to say, oh, okay, I get it. This is the type of thing I need to eat. But prior to that, it was like, just eat whatever feels good or whatever tastes good. Snack if you feel like snacking. What is a portion? And that was, a very quick way to numbers that weren't in alignment with staying healthy.
Oh my gosh, portions.
Mhm.
Portions are
Portions are
everything.
everything. Like stuff like, don't take the whole bag of chips to the couch, put some into a little bowl. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
simple stuff like that. If I just don't have it around me, I'm fine. Or another thing that I learned was, and these aren't like tricks of the trade or anything. I don't recommend. I always tell everyone, start with your doctor, because different things for different people. But me recognizing that when I'm hungry, all my body wants is food, and everything counts as food to my brain. So when I say to myself, "Oh, I'm hungry, I'm craving a blank," I'm not really craving anything. If I were to eat like an apple, that would also work, So I started having to
Wow.
remind myself of that. I also have to remind myself that grocery stores have food, not just like fast food places. So if you're hungry, you can easily pull over at a grocery store and buy like one banana or two apples, and like that counts as food. Like just simple stuff like that. So like I'll go into a grocery store and grab like an apple, a banana, and then go to the cashier and then check out, and I'll be good.
That's so good. Okay, so describe that journey because I mean, you're going to be hungry for a little bit, right? Because you've been used to eating
Certain
larger
portions.
portions.
So I'll be completely candid with you. I wasn't hungry.
Okay.
And the reason why I wasn't hungry was because I ate. So like I was never in a position where I was like, I'm not going to eat food. I just chose to eat different things. So if I was hungry, like there was one point where I'm not kidding, I was eating like mixing bowls of salads. Like I would get like, because like I was like, this counts as food. And in terms of like caloric, nutritional value, like all of that, this all counts. You know what I mean? So I'm going to scarf it, and that works. Like I never let myself be hungry. And I still don't, and I also don't deprive myself. If I want chips, like I'll have chips. I just won't eat the entire bag like I
Right,
used to,
right.
and then what happens is after a while, and it's that after a while part, I don't want to minimize that. Sticking with it is the hardest. And for me, it's been about 6 years, since I started the journey, and kept the weight off, like, cause I've lost at this point, I think close to 120 pounds,
Wow.
since then it's been, gosh, it hasn't been 120. I'm probably being dramatic. It's probably more like 100 and something five. It doesn't matter anymore. I don't think about the number. Like, I care about my health, like I can go upstairs and not get winded. But yeah, a lot of it in terms of like, it wasn't about being hungry. It was just about like, if you're still hungry, eat something. Just don't choose to eat the rest of that bag of chips, like,
Right.
for me. And
Or
again,
all
I'm
the
only
french
speaking to me.
fries
Right. I'm
or
only speaking to me, not, for other people, it might be something different.
yeah. Okay, so describe your movement journey.
Oh, you mean like activity and just like
Yeah.
getting stuff like that. So in the very beginning, um, it was really funny when I first knew that I needed to like get fit. I was like, oh, well, cool. Like, I remember what I did when I was 24. Like, if I need to lose weight, you just got to hit the pavement, work out, and then you can eat that pizza. Like, that's how that works, done and done. Yeah, no, there's a special thing that happens to women's bodies after 30 and then after 35. And then when you hit 40, and no one talks about it, but it's like puberty, everything starts going haywire. So, for
Here,
me, it
here.
was here, right? So for me, I went and I was like, oh, I came back from Boise and I was like, oh, great. Like, I'm just going to start running again. Like, the issue's activity. I blew out my knees. I mean, both of my knees were swollen at the end of the day. And it was because I was running with a body that was close to 300 pounds, with the mindset of a body that at my heaviest before was like 220 or 200. It just wasn't the same. So I realized when that occurred that I wasn't going to be able to literally run away from this problem like I used to. I used to be able, I was like, it's going to be nutrition. Like, it's not, oh, how you hear people say I work out so I
Right.
can eat what I want, like that
Yeah.
wasn't the case anymore. And so then I realized I have to actually handle it, because if for some reason you have an injury and you can't work out, you don't want to just gain 5 pounds, and you have to eat every single day, 3 times a day. So that means I had to choose life on my plate 3 times a day. Like, there's no getting around it. So I focused on nutrition in the beginning, but then I think it was last year, it's been about a year now, between like stress and the pandemic, I gained about 30 pounds over the no, that was like 22 pounds over the pandemic. And I don't feel bad about it at all. I literally was putting inside of me an inner lining of a hug. I was eating my donuts, my fudge, my popcorn. Do not care that I gained that weight during the pandemic, because that weight kept me sane. I felt good about it, but I also need to get it off. And so, for health reasons. So in March, I, was smaller than I've been. I still had off my original kind of like 80 pounds or so, but I realized that my numbers were ticking back up again. And that was super scary to me, because I was like, why are my numbers going up, but I'm so much, smaller and healthier than I used to be? And I realized, after talking to my doctor, that like some long-term effects were still there in terms of like my blood pressure and all that for my choices I made. And he told me that the answer, to get that heart health together wasn't just going to be nutrition. It was that I had to like hit the pace. Like, I can't avoid the gym. So I started working out, and I've been working out for the past year, and I managed to, like, I've broken new numbers around, like, if we're just looking at the scale, my numbers look different. My body's more toned. Like, I physically look and feel better and stronger. And it just started with walking, and then a little bit of lightweight training. Like, I don't do anything crazy. My goal is always, what can I do sustainably forever? Like, whether I'm now or
Mm,
like 60, I'm not here trying to throw cinder blocks and, flip through the air. I just want to make sure that whatever I do, I can always do it wherever I am. Like, just starting small, because I want to do this forever, so that's where I am now. And then just generally being active. So I started like, I'm in LA a lot for work. So I snowboard now, and like I take walking meetings. So, like this podcast, if it wasn't a podcast interview and I was just talking to you, I would be like walking while doing it. Just like, oh, I'll just go outside. It's nice. And just little things like that have added so much activity to my life.
How has this impacted your rhythms with your family, your food rhythms with your family?
So that's something I always get from people, where they're just like, well, how do you get the rest of the family on board and all of that? I'm not kidding when I said, like, I looked at my family and I told them, like, look, like, I'm not healthy. Like, I need to stay alive, and it just is what it is. And some of my family members were on board and some of them weren't, at the time. And everyone has their journey that they have to get there at, at their own rate. But I just started making the choice I need to make. And, some people may say, oh, that's selfish. Some people may say, like, well, what about their ability to eat their meals and all that? And it helped me learn that my family can really take care of themselves better than I thought they could, and that I needed to eat what I needed to eat to be okay. And I can't make that second fiddle, because if I'm not physically here, because I didn't take care of my health, well, no one's eating anything. So
Right.
let me just go ahead and, if you guys are really, hard firm on wanting to eat those french fries, well, someone's going to have to go get them, because what's on table today is a salad. And if we don't like the salad, then, we're just going to have to figure out what else we're going to eat, because this is what's being served. And because that's a good choice for everyone. Like, I wasn't making choices that were unhealthy. I was helping show them kind of what they should have been doing from the beginning.
Because
So
how old are your kids now?
little. So I mean, well, littles and not so little. So I have a 22-year-old, a 19-year-old, and a 10-year-old. So what's great is my 10-year-old, we adopted all three, so we've had her since she was 3, and she has a very awesome relationship with food because she's been eating different foods since she was little, and she loves the salad and veggies. But my older ones, because of their prior life, they were eating a lot of like fast food and chips and sodas, and that was very normal in their world, and understandably so because of how poverty affects your ability to eat properly. For them, it was a challenge to say, like, no, like, let's introduce healthy things, and this is what a tomato is, and stuff like that. So, but yeah, I mean, they're open to eating well, and they've been supportive of the journey. And I mean, the husband's lost 40 pounds on his own, but it took him a while to get on the same page, as me, and I still continued my journey either way.
Okay, so 6 years, that's a long time. I mean, I'm gonna just say this is your life. This is your
Yes, I hope
lifestyle.
so. Look, I receive that.
Yes, amen. So,
Yes,
but I know in those 6 years, I mean, you just described one after the pandemic. I mean, we fluctuate in weight. It's
of
not just
course.
I start this health journey and the scale just goes down forever and ever. Amen. So I find that when we have these moments where things aren't fitting quite well,
Hmm.
I'm not quite sure what's going on, huh? And because sometimes it just kind of catches you a little bit, like if you just start maybe increasing your portions a little bit or you have that extra glass of wine at night, it's like before you know it, you've kind of put on some weight.
Oh, sure.
So it's but then getting back into that mentality of losing weight again, that can be hard. So, what do you do in those moments when you're like, I don't really want to cut back?
I mean, I don't. I allow myself to to indulge sometimes.
But
I
yeah,
think
but
that.
you said you ate like donuts straight
Oh,
and
yeah, 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 like stuff
popcorn
like that.
and
Like, so usually what happens is, I had to remind myself, like, it was a twofold thing with the pandemic where, in saying to myself, I'm going to get out, get into the world, live a little bit, be active. That wasn't just a like food thing. That was a mind thing, like it was I think we all kind of suffered like a bit of a collective depression or blow in sort of dealing with the communal loss of our lives as we knew it. And what goes along with depression, we may not take as good care of ourselves, and we may go to certain comfort things. And so for me, letting go of, the eating habits and some of this, excessive snack foods or excessive calories or sugars or things that I already know from my personal body recipe are not the best for me. Letting go of that also was letting go of the grief and letting go of saying, hey, this is what my life, is during this season, and stepping it back into saying, no, like, I accept positivity, I accept this world, like, I'm getting back out there. So, you know, being out in the world and not being at home meant that I wasn't Uber eating junk food all the time. And it meant that I was doing more activity. So all those things sort of aligned with it. And honestly, like, I have a therapist that I see twice a week, once a
that
week.
is impressive, twice a week.
Oh yeah, it started off with just once a week, but like, I'm going through some transitions in my life right now where I knew that I needed to have extra time, and I'm never willing to shy away from the resources that I need when I need them. And so, like, I see it there. I always joke, like, Wednesdays are for the fact that I deal with other people, and Fridays are the fact that I have to deal with myself. So like
That's
that's why
so
I see her
good.
twice a
That's
week.
really good,
Yeah, that's
actually.
why I see her twice a week. So, my therapist, we talk about food also, and it was, why are you eating like this? And is it, what has changed? What are you doing to change those things? Because, disordered eating, however format, whether it's eating a lot or eating a little or eating the right foods or eating not right foods, whatever right food is for your body, usually is tied to an emotion. It's tied to a belief system. It's tied to whatever else. So post pandemic, it was about working on all of that stuff. And then the food things actually became, they kind of started fixing themselves, if you will, because I was thinking more about the things that really mattered. And
Oh, it's so
I think that's the
true.
mistake. It's just like a lot of us think that it's just like, oh no, I just want my pants to look good, or oh no, I just want to feel better in my body, or I just want to whatever. But if you talk to anyone, and Jessica, you have like a ton, when you talk to anyone about like what weight loss represents in their life, or their body, it almost always has to do with, well, I'll have more confidence, or I'll have more drive, or I'll make more money, or it's always tied to something else. And really that has nothing to do with food.
Oh
It
my
has everything to do
gosh.
with belief. So
Yeah. I mean, I just love I've told myself a story for so long that cuz I own this fashion brand and I am a public person and I always thought if I was thinner, if I
Yep.
had sort of what New York fashion wants, I'd be more successful.
Yep. Yep.
And if I looked this certain way, I would belong more. If I didn't get invited to a certain event that I deemed as, the event to get invited to, I would say, oh, it's because of my body. And so it was like this protection, right?
It
That's a
is for
lie. That was
sure. For
protecting
sure.
me from just standing in my own
That's right.
story.
That's right.
And then it's all gone back to childhood. My whole relationship with my body, my view of my body, it's like I almost encourage people go to a therapist first, and then go to your doctor,
Doctor.
and
Absolutely.
then your doctor can help you get on board with a
A
nutrition
nutritionist.
plan,
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. But it's a team, right? Like that's what you mean when you say that expertise team. Like it's not, if you really think you're going to solve your relationship with food, and I love calling it a relationship with food just because for some of us it's a gain issue, for some of us it's a loss issue. And so often we talk about weight as being this like, you have to lose it, or if you're overweight that's the issue. Like we all have I have friends who have gorgeous stereotypical society driven bodies, and they still have disordered eating because all they ever do is drink sugary foods, and their numbers are terrible and they never work out, like they're not healthy either, and it's because they have a relationship with food that's unhealthy as well. And so if you have issues with your relationships, what do? You see a therapist, you see a doctor, and you get the tools, and that's all it
Mm.
is. So for me, that's always been my approach. And during the pandemic, I was in a very rough relationship with food where it was more about comfort and being consoled and sometimes even entertainment and being bored and, indulging and quick fixes that way. And that relationship does not serve me long term. And it's not something I need long term. So when it came time to get back to it, I talked to all my team again, my therapist, my doctor, and my nutritionist, and now my trainer, so that I can get back into a healthy relationship. But I also acknowledge, I think it's important to say here out loud, I'm really blessed to have the finances and resources to be able to do that. And I think too often people forget that, or don't acknowledge enough that as a public figure, as someone who has a TV show, as someone who's out there and has been blessed to earn a great income, I have access to some tools and resources that not everyone does in the beginning. And I didn't in the beginning, but you can get started now with what you have, but
Mhm.
don't go
Well,
comparing
even
yourself to
Overeaters
me.
Anonymous, there are
You can get
groups to
started.
go
There's no excuse
to.
not to
Yeah,
start, but
right.
just I always think it's so important that that we acknowledge, because people are like, oh, you just need this, 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 and this. And it's like, well, all those
That's
things
hundreds of
cost
dollars a month,
hundreds of
yeah.
dollars, and gas prices. Like I can't afford that, so it's just so important to acknowledge that, I do have that financial privilege, but I didn't always, and I still started. So
I
I
think
still want
that's
to encourage
good.
people to start. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully this conversation is a starting point for a lot of our listeners. Would you just close out with what you would say to someone who wants to go ahead and start but doesn't feel like they have these resources?
Absolutely. So I think that an automatic resource that we all have and that we should be engaging with is our doctor. Go in and get an expanded full panel blood work exam. I think too often we just go in there, we kind of nod our head, and we don't take control of our medical sessions, and we don't recognize that even though it's insurance, we're still paying for a service to be seen. So I always go in to my annual exam, and that's actually where it started for me. I went in and I said, hey, I don't want just sort of high level blood panel that's just kind of, how's your iron? How's your this? Like, I give me the full thing. Tell me everything you can tell me. Honestly, anytime I've ever asked for a full blood panel, it saved my life. So I just really encourage people to engage with your doctors, to ask questions, to look to them as experts and not just your favorite influencer, and create a team around you from the resources you have to get the change that you want.
Thank you so much, Nicole. Prioritizing wellness requires effort, but it's worth it because we only have one body that's going to serve us and carry us through this earth. Make sure that you are subscribed to my email. Head over to jessicahoniger.com to be in my email community, because I'm going to share a little bit more behind the scenes of this entire listener favorite episode series that we are doing right now. Thank you again for joining us on the Going Scared podcast. Tune in next week, because we're moving on to our countdown to number 8 for our listener favorite episodes. I'm Jessica Honegger. Until next time, let's take each other by the hand and keep going scared.